My fight was going to start from the 7th round and on.
Canelo.
So when can we get something going on?
Oh, man. Thank you, my man.
Demetrius.
Big fan.
Thank you.
What's up, though?
I know that.
When can we make it happen, though? What do you think?
Man, you fight with nobody. Hey, you are a champion, but are you... What?
Wait, you avoided that.
Hey, you fight with nobody, man. You won that you won the event with nobody. Man, get the fuck out of here, man. Please, get the fuck out of here, man. It's my night. Who else fighting?
No,
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Why the fuck you? I told somebody the other day. All right, fuck you. We don't get that.
Hey, get the fuck out of here because I'm gonna fuck you up right now.
Come.
Oh, look at this guy.
Fuck you. All right?
Hey, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
What's your mouth? What's your fucking mouth? What's your mouth, bro?
Hey,
Hey, you got guys, please.
What? Hey, what?
hey, you're a horrible fighter, man. You never gonna get the fight, man. You're a horrible fighter. Horrible fighter. Horrible fighter.
Compete, bro. Compete.
Okay, next question.
Just payday. You want payday. I know that.
Watch your mouth, bro. Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. When I see you, it's on.
Yeah. I see your side, yeah, man. That's the key, man.
Next question.
Wow. Eruption in the press conference on the post. Tell it all. Wow. Canelo Alvarez. Demetrius Andrade. And, you know, Andrade is there. He does those type of things. He's always there. He's sidelining. He makes his voice known to a certain degree. Canelo Alvarez, of course, told him, hey, who have you fought? You fought nobody. You know, and he's true in a sense. I mean, Demetrius Andrade he really hasn't fought anybody. I mean, the irony of this is the fighter that Canelo Alvarez made quit, Billy Joe Saunders, was supposed to fight Demetrius Andrade 2 years ago. Right? Maybe 3 years ago now. When Demetrius got with Eddie Hearn. Okay, he signed with Eddie Hearn in the zone, and they had that fight with Billy Joe Saunders, and Billy Joe Saunders wasn't even with Matchroom at the time. So that just showed you. I mean, he had that fight in the bag, but Billy Joe, some strange substance due to some type of nasal spray, the fight didn't happen, and then the fight never returned. And I always wondered why. Like, okay, well, why isn't the fight postponed or whatever? But normally, what happens when you fail a drug test, all the contracts are nullified. They're sealed. So that's unfortunate for Demetrius Andrade. But you know, he's had some shitty decisions. Demetrius Andrade had some shitty business decisions. Okay, he's still an undefeated fighter, just like Billy Joe. And you know, Billy Joe has fought, you know, the better opposition. He's fought the David Lemieux and you know, the Chris Eubank Juniors, those kind of guys. And you know, Chris Eubank was undefeated himself at the time. You know, and David Lemieux was a knockout artist from Golden Boy. You know, the Canadian knockout artist. So. You know, and then he was going to be a possible challenger for Canelo one day. You know, so, you know, those were those type of fights that Canelo was there, that were presented for Canelo. But as far as Demetrius, Canelo's right. I mean, he hasn't really fought anyone. And like I tell anybody that would listen about Demetrius Andrade, he's a good fighter, very slick. I don't know if he's slicker than Billy Joe. That's why I wanted to see that fight, but he turned down a fight against one of the Charlos, and you know, it wasn't enough money, which it didn't really do him any justice because he really didn't get any big fights anyway. He went from a long time without fighting anybody at 154, and then when he went to 160, you know, a lot of people want to ride behind Demetrius, but I mean, he has not done those things. And, you know, at this point, speaking of bad business decisions, it's up to Eddie Hearn, his promoter, to make sure he gets these damn fights. You know, he's not going to fight Canelo, no, because Canelo's going to fight Caleb Plant. Maybe after that, that fight may happen. But at the end of the day, he has to fight someone. He could have fought a Danny Jacobs. Eddie Hearn could have presented a contract with Demetrius Andrade. Okay, and I think he did once upon a time. Either they turned it down or whatever. But he's not a high priority fighter. He's a champion, sure, no doubt. But then he brings nothing really to the table. He's beat no one, and he's a damn good fighter. That is true. He's a damn good fighter. So for someone like Canelo, he was beaten by Erislandy Lara in the amateurs. You know, he didn't get that fight either. You know, so a lot of fights that could have made him a name or could have put names on his resume, he really hasn't fought. And then he comes back after the fact and sidelines like he did. You know, and it got heated. It really got heated. And, you know, Canelo Alvarez, hey, get the fuck out of here. You know, he was, you know, hey, this is my night. He was trying to play it in, but you know, Demetrius Andrade's father was there, and, you know, family is going to back you 100%. So, you know, he was like, hey, we'll fuck you up and this, that, and the other. And then, you know, and a lot of words were going back and forth. And I like to see Canelo come out of his shell like that. He said that to a guy in his last fight because the guy was behind him and he turned around like, hey, man, get the fuck out. You know, he does those type of things. He says those type of things. And I like that he's coming out of the shell now more and more. And I think you can expect this more on, especially when Caleb Plant, because Caleb Plant's another vocal guy. He talks smack too. So expect more of this when you're dealing with the clash of personalities, when you're dealing with these fighters. Sure, their styles in the ring, but before their styles and before they get in the ring, you got to worry about their clashes in personality. You know, how they gel together, if they gel at all. It could be like oil and water, right? So, but Demetrius Andrade was like, hey, you know, when can we get it on? Let's fight. Let's do this. And, you know, people would look at it as disrespectful from Canelo, you know, but the irony of this is the same guy that's sitting beside Canelo Alvarez is the same guy that's supposed to deliver the fights to Demetrius Andrade. He has the top fighters, sure, but then the disadvantage of having a monopoly and again a big stable of fighters is some of these fighters will fall through the cracks and you won't spend the energy and the time to make sure they get the fights that they want. Okay, so it's hard to please everybody, but at the same time, that's your job. You know, but Canelo, again, you know, the guy that made $35-40 million, you know, last night, you know, coming from someone that doesn't even compare. Watermelon to grape. But Demetrius Andrade, I think he shouldn't worry about trying to take on Canelo. I think that's a big order right now. I think he should try to take on a Danny Jacobs or Jamal Charlo or someone that can boost his profile. Get him a Triple G fight. Eddie Hearn, that's what he's for again. Get him a damn Triple G fight. How about that? Triple G don't want to fight him. Well, if that's the case, get Triple G the fuck out of there. Counterpunch. But it was very entertaining to see because this is the first time I saw it. You know, and you know, and look, it's entertaining, but understand, because of this, Canelo won't forget this moment. Okay? Demetrius Andrade is still undefeated. So the bright side to this is Demetrius starts, if Eddie works with him and he starts getting to him some high profile fights, that fight can happen. They're both young. Canelo's still 30 years old. Demetrius Andrade is like around 30, 31, I think, right? He's fairly young. He's still undefeated, though. So that fight, and he's still a champion. So that fight could possibly happen on down the line. And this might have dropped a seed into the ground and see if it grows. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about this heated altercation between Canelo Alvarez versus Demetrius Andrade. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunching.